G'day everybody, welcome to Shed Gospel. My name's Nigel Woolley. Lovely to join with you today. And today I want to ask you the question, putting the question out there, what is our lawful recourse? Is it the Magna Carta? Is it the Bill of Rights? And what are the principles? I mean, just looking at this myself, having a look at our, for lack of better words, our democratic style system on our democracy. And I think those words have been greatly abused. But in what I would classify as a free society based on a constitution, what remedy and lawful recourse do the people have if we have a government and the institutions so corroded from within, and the morals of them so corroded from within? I mean, and if they don't even tell you the truth anymore, and if these people are all in some secret network or allegiance in and of themselves that has created a domestic enemy of the people, but using the system that is here for our freedom and protecting our rights, but turning it around against us. I mean, what do we have as people? I mean, it's a great question. And I think when you're waking up to a lot of this stuff that's going on, you've got to ask yourself, what can I do? How can I stop these guys from forcing me to do stuff that is unlawful, or pushing things on me? What grounds do I have? You know, the right of appeal. I mean, how old is that? You know, we have the right of appeal, don't we? Certainly with court cases. But what if you have the bad guys in the local court, you know, Supreme Courts of the states, and the same bad guys in a high court, you know? What if they were all together? What if they'd secretly colluded to put the kibosh on a certain matter regarding us? What if they were working together with law enforcement? What if they were working together with the legislature? You know, and this is it. And I think if these guys are actually working together as a unit, if they are in a secret allegiance with each other in a seditious way, then what lawful recourse do we have if these people are turning into a domestic enemy? So we've got an occupation on our shores of an enemy that knows all about us, knows our system backwards, writes the laws, enforces the laws, and then judges on those laws in the courts. You know, what if that's happening? Could that potentially happen? And I think that is exactly what has happened, certainly in Australia. When you have a look at, I think, some of the stupid interpretations of the law and unfortunate interpretations of the High Court in some cases regarding our Constitution, where they have made a ruling that is not in the favour of the people, or they've done such a too narrow interpretation of the Constitution that's not the flavour of the Constitution, but gives them, you know, like, for example, very narrowly interpreting a freedom of ours. You know, it's actually creates a precedent type thing, as far as I can tell, helps create a precedent that continues to erode our rights, you know, and they get some confidence to keep eroding our rights if they get a few runs on the board with dodgy interpretations of our Constitution. You know, this is what's happening. This is exactly what's happening, you know, and certainly guys out there are noticing what's going on, and there's some proposals, you know, of the Magna Carta, Article 61, and the Our Lawful Rebellion thing that Graham Jeffs is doing. Good on him, you know, and Aussie Patriots Roll. You know, all of these things I think are very good. Many people are looking at it at a personal level of trying to get out of the system, looking at, can I be a free man on the land? Can I make the laws of the land not apply to me through, you know, basically opting out of the system? There's a lot of stuff that's going on, and people are taking a good hard look at all of this. And what's the best way? I think a lot of this stuff is, you know, some things can be dead-end roads, I think. And the reality, I think, is that we don't even want to face is that even if we have our own lawful position, once these guys get out of control, you know, they're going to take weapons out on us, aren't they? They're going to use the gun on us. use force. That's what they're going to try and do, is use force against us if they continue to keep getting their way. And, and when the whole thing's become so eroded from within and morals are at an all-time low and people won't tell you the truth anymore, as I'm finding, even these trusted people, they don't tell you the truth. They give you greasy answers. I can't trust them. What do? If they've said we can't have a Second Amendment like America, we can't have Second Amendment rights type thing like America because, hey, we're not America, But what do we have as Australians? What if this whole thing got out of control? Do we have a right, even if it's not written in law, do we have a right on principle to actually say, right, well, if you guys are going too far, we have the right to self-defense. That's it. Is this stuff self-defense? If this is coming for us personally, us and our children, or demanding that we do certain things, extorting us, corroding our freedoms, these sort of things that seem to be happening on a daily basis now, and there's no truth in them, these people, and they burn their own if those ever dare to try and expose what they're doing. They're a law unto themselves, and our sleeping on the job for probably 120 years of federation, as far as the people's concerned, and certainly recently, waking up to the fact that we have domestic enemies, exactly what's happening in America. These domestic enemies are masquerading as those who are doing a good job for us. We've got to be able to determine, are they even in lawful standing? What if they're not? How do we stop them from doing that? I think just posing the question, what is our lawful recourse? I've got a few things that I've seen. Obviously, the Magna Carta, like the Great Charter, the principle in the Magna Carta was, if you guys have an out-of-hand situation, the barons and King John was there to defend the people from these people coming in that were trying to take away all their stuff and take away their freedoms. And if you guys are having such a hard time and we can't get to you, then you guys have a lawful recourse to go and seize that which belongs to you and that which has been taken away from you by force, even from these other guys, and we'll back you up. That principle there, I think, is very honourable. And you read the Magna Carta, and this is why it's almost like the good bit of the Bible that's actually saying to us, well, look, here's the laws, but when it all gets out of control, you guys can actually rise up and go and seize that which is unlawfully being done, even if it's been done through the institution of the law. And just because it's not written in an act of parliament for us doesn't mean that the right to do so is not with the people. I mean, it is with the people. I believe this, that the right to self-defence, even if we've never had an act of parliament that has said we have the right to self-defence, that means that the powers have not been granted to them to make a law one way or the other for us. So therefore the power is still with the people. We haven't given them the power to make a law on that basis. So I would say, by the fact that the powers that have not been enumerated to the Parliament to make laws, I mean, they've been given the power to make laws for the peace, order and good government of the Commonwealth. Part of that is making sure we have a peaceful society. But if that is so corrupted from within, then I believe, this is myself, going back through the principles that are in the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights, you can see there a principle that if it all goes completely out of hand, the people have the power to get and stand up for themselves and have the lawful right to do so. Talking about the Bill of Rights, if you go back through the Bill of Rights, and it's applied to Australia through our English law heritage, but it's even, if you have a look at the Imperial Acts Application Act, it talks about they've recognised the certain laws of England that still apply to us as such, and the Bill of Rights 1688 is actually still in our law foundations today. And what's it say in there? From that time, when the Bill of Rights 1688, when that was written, there was the issue where the papists of Rome, where Rome was trying to subvert England, as in take it over from within, that they had the problem that they had double agents, people that were trying to bring England back under Rome's control at that stage. And so the whole Protestant thing, being Protestants, there's a clause there in the Bill of Rights, 1688, which is still law here in Australia now, as it is, right? It says that Protestants have the right to bear arms, the right to bear arms, such as allowed by law. And the wording's very, very similar to that. So go and have a look at that for yourself. The Bill of Rights, 1688. Go and look it up. It'll be online available so you can read it. But it's actually towards the end there where it says that Protestants have the right to bear arms for their defence. And that's it. Is that if the principle is there in England when you have infiltrators from Rome that were trying to bring all back under Rome back at that stage, then the people had an authorised right by the king at that time to bear arms for their self-defence. And I think that it's honourable, it's merciful that the people have that right and have been given that right through law to defend themselves from corruption and tyranny from within. And I would sort of wonder, why has this not been given its own act of parliament here in Australia? One reason is because they want to sew the game up here in Australia. That's one thing. But also, taking great care in writing such a document would be that if the media could control people to think that the government was, if they were actually doing the right thing, but if the media was so infiltrated that they could brainwash the people and say, oh, like they're doing in America, they're saying, oh, Donald Trump's a bad guy, you need to be able to defend yourself against Donald Trump. That sort of indoctrination, something like that, an act like that of Parliament, I think could be very dangerous. That gives people the concept that they have, whatever they believe to be true type thing, whatever they're indoctrinated or brainwashed to believe to be true. You could have people taking out guns just against the government for no reason, just based on indoctrination and lies, So really, I believe that the right to bear arms, the right to self-defence and all the rest of it is still with the people. When you read the Constitution and the annotated Constitution, it gives the concept there that if it's not enumerated as the power of the Parliament, the powers are still with the people. So even if it's something that's not been written, but it's a need that we have to defend ourselves, then that's actually, can you find that in the Bible? Can you find the principle of that in the Bible? When they've got wicked leaders. What about all the guys in the Bible that the Spirit of the Lord came upon to go and, go and deal with the king at that stage? What about Jehu in the Bible? That the Lord came upon Jehu and he went and got rid of Jezebel. He said, throw her down. But the Lord dealt with Ahab. God dealt with the husband, the king. But the prophet at that stage was the one speaking out against the corruption that was going on. So there's a need for us as voices in the culture to say, hey, look, something's really off. Warning, 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 warning. And God does that. He wants us to give warnings. Warning, warning to the culture, but also warning to those that are in power that they're standing offside, they're standing in the wrong place. But it comes a time when the warnings are finished, they're not heeding the warnings, there's nothing that we can do anymore, but this is time for the Lord to do something, and time for people to wake up and stand up and to be strong and to realise that we have given them their freedoms to do what they're doing, given them the powers to do what they're doing, but they're no longer on our side at all. They are actually a domestic enemy. They are, for lack of better words, a foreign occupation here in Australia. And we have the right to defend Australia from such a thing, don't we? And so as a Christian, You know, you think, oh no, Christians have got to be pacifists. They've got to be nice to everybody. Let Jesus do everything. Well, here's the thing is, and I'll put this to you, and to just think about, Jesus said, didn't he? He said, look, my kingdom's not of this world. Otherwise my servants would fight. You know, and we've got some things in there from the Bible that shows us that primarily God's dealing with the heart of mankind. That's God's agenda all the time. And great evil things have happened before with seemingly a good agenda in the beginning. You know, like the purgings of corruption can actually go way beyond any restraints, and things can go very bad. And there's great care. You've got to be very, very cautious that it's not actually like Antifa creating a rebellion, actually in rebellion, you know. And so all of my videos talking about lawfulness, my point is here that we can and should be more lawfully standing than our own parliament. We should know our law better than they do. You know, we should know the foundations of it. We should know the principles of it. We should stand up for that which is right and true, and hold them to account, and do so with boldness, and ask God to speak with us to them, you know, to convict them in case they are just doing it, going with the flow. But there comes an actual time when morality of these people is so that they don't have any morals anymore. They don't have any conscience anymore. They don't have any conviction anymore of what's true. They have no national values for us. Their only national value is touting the national value, so we vote for them, or something that can line their own pockets. You know, when that becomes the way it is, the Bible actually says that, you know, because sentence is not quickly given against an evil work, because punishment doesn't come quickly, the heart of men becomes fully sold out to do evil. I'll say that again. The Bible says that if a sentence, and when a sentence is not quick to come and deal with that which is wrong, then the heart of people becomes so changed, they learn from it and they realize, oh, I can keep doing the wrong thing, you know, and their hearts become fully set out to do evil after that, you know. And so, in just a challenge to you today to ask the question, I think the power is in actually asking questions, isn't it? You know, saying, look, what is our lawful recourse in this situation? You know, you can ask all these people that are telling you what to do. You say, look, what can I do if I don't agree with what you're saying here? What's my rights in the case of you telling me a directive that I think is actually based on a lie? What's my rights in this situation? And if they're going to say, you don't have any rights, you have to do what I say, then you can say, well, what gives you the power to say such a thing? You know, who gave you this right? You know, where are you drawing your constitutional basis? I mean, us standing more lawfully than them has a power in and of itself. So going back to our law, and I think this is it, if our parliament aren't obeying their laws that they have been given by the people through the Constitution, that is a red light in and of itself. You know, if they continue to act outside of our Constitution to try and show us that they're breaking it, breaking the Federation up, closing the borders, all this stuff that's going on that's against our actual Constitution, the highest law in Australia, if rebellion's happening at the Parliament level, I think we have to step in to do something about it. This is it. You know, we're trying to preserve the Constitution. And I think this can be a very noble thing that we can do that flies under the radar. It's not rebellion, you know, because the police are going to be very strong against what they perceive as anarchy, aren't they? But if we say that we're defending the Constitution for what it says, we're trying to preserve the Constitution, they won't be able to say you can't preserve the Constitution because their powers come from it. You know, if we're saying we're trying to preserve the foundations of our own parliament being there for us based on the Constitution, if we're trying to preserve that, then why would the parliament get us offside? You know, why would they think that we're trying to overthrow them? In fact, we're trying to bring them back to lawful standing. You know, same thing with the High Court. I was thinking about this today with the High Court. You know, what if the High Court continually reinterprets our Constitution the opposite to what it says at face value? What if they kept doing that? Excuse me. Which I think they have done some things like that. What if we had some evil people in the High Court? What can we do? You know, I think what I see is, and I say this is eat the meat and spit out the bones, you know, take the best bits, every good interpretation of our Constitution that's in the favour of the people and that's properly interpreting the Constitution, we can accept that. I think that's good to do so. But for things that are not, or an inversion of the Constitution, or some like inversion of the Constitution, say for example where it says section 109 of the Constitution actually says that if the law of a state is inconsistent with the law of the federal, or law of the Commonwealth, the law of the Commonwealth shall prevail, and the law of the state, to the extent of the inconsistency, shall be invalid. I think that section 109 there gives us the clear picture, very, very clear picture, that the federal parliament has the power to protect us in the case that a state is going out of control, you know. And if the High Court have actually interpreted the Constitution the opposite to that, saying, well, you know what, basically the federal can only make laws that fit in between the laws of the states, and if the law of a state is already has precedence of time first, for example, then the federal can't knock it out. I think that is a dodgy interpretation of section 109 of the Constitution, which eventually, if they got that concept, then we actually have no federation anymore. We have no union of all states together under the federation, you know. So therefore, if they can, how bad this can actually get is if the states start going rogue with things, then according to their interpretation of the Constitution, which is a dodgy one, they would then say, well, look, the federal doesn't have the power to knock it out. Say, for example, if Daniel Andrews decides he's going to be an absolute dictator down there, making laws unto himself, then the federal parliament doesn't have, if he makes a law first, the federal parliament doesn't have the power to knock that law out. That's actually a lie, isn't it? When you read the Constitution for face value, it actually says that when the law of a state is inconsistent with the law of the Commonwealth, you know, that the laws of the Commonwealth shall prevail. I mean, what laws of the Commonwealth do we have? We have our Human Rights Commission Act. As sort of flimsy as it is, it's something. What about all the other things that we have there that have come at protections we've had at federal level, you know? And but what I'm saying is, if the High Court's done an interpretation of the Constitution that we don't agree with, that doesn't work out to be in our favour, that becomes a point of leverage for tyranny, I think that we have the power to veto, the people should have the power to veto a decision that's been made by the High Court. Why do I think so? Because if you read the Constitution, the people are the ones through the Constitution that have enumerated the things, but the Constitution, the High Court is a creation of the Constitution. You know, if we didn't have a Constitution, then we don't have a High Court. So therefore, the Constitution has a higher standing than the High Court and any decisions that they make. Also, that the Constitution is a creation by the will of the people. It's an enumeration of the will of the people in a document. So the power still remains with the people. So if we have a lawful recourse to say we don't agree with the decision of the High Court on this matter, this does not suit us as Australians, this is trying to break up our federation, that we can withdraw our consent. This is what I think, and I have not seen it anywhere in the law anywhere. I think it's like the right of appeal. But if we have got no appeal with the situation any further, then I think constitutionally I could say we could have an amendment to our Constitution that says that if the High Court's done that, we can veto, the people have the power to judge the matter then, if you know what I mean. So That's how I see it. I think the power always is with the people. These people are the High Court, the Federal Parliament, the states, and all the rest of it. They're all creations of from the Constitution. Even though the states have been here first as colonies, the Constitution was the document that created them to be states. It actually turned them into states. So therefore, I see on principle there, talking about the Magna Carta, the principle there in the Magna Carta of when it all gets completely out of hand and the people have got no further protections, the power goes back to the people, and the people say, right, we're going to enact, we're going to stop this tyranny from happening any longer. We have a domestic enemy that's no longer the servant of the people. You're acting out of line. We're taking your powers off you. You know, the same way we would do with a child. You know, what if we gave a toy to our child at Christmas, for example, same way that we've given the Constitution, but we've given the powers to the Parliament, the same sort of thing, and the High Court, we've given over that to them in trust, saying we trust you to act on our behalf, we trust you to do the right thing by us, we're going to delegate these powers to you. But what happens if they abuse that? What happens if our child abuses the present that we gave them at Christmas time? What we do is we go and take that present off them until they learn their lesson. We go and put the present up on the shelf so that they can't wreck it. And the same thing is that if the Parliament have been abusing the people and creating garbage that is going to overlord the people, acting beyond their powers, the same thing with the High Court or anything else that's in the Constitution, if they have so abused that and abused the trust they have been given, we must begin to look at our powers to take the power off them or to suspend it in starting first, suspend the power that they had to approve something in a given case or to judge a matter a certain way in a given case. This is my view, but I think talking about our lawful recourse, what else do we have? Otherwise, the only resort is violence, isn't it? Which we don't want. So, in trying to resolve things peacefully, even though the whole thing is really out of control, I think, at the moment, what we should be able to do is say, look, I withdraw my consent. I withdraw my agreement to what you're doing here, and as the power of the people, I'm standing here in my sovereignty, and I'm saying no, and you're not having the power to do that, and in fact, your ruling in this matter is invalid. You know, we've got to be able to have that power. The principle is found in the Magna Carta. The principle is found in the Bill of Rights. So even if we don't have it exactly in the Constitution written there for us, the principle is there that if we've given them the powers to act for our good, on our behalf, but if they're not doing that anymore, what we do is we have the power to withdraw that granted authority. We have the power to withdraw that from them. And certainly on a case-by-case basis. And I think this is where everybody has to take a good hard look at what's going on. And this would be my view. You know, talking about what our view of the future is and how we can try and help resolve and sort out our mess that we have here in Australia right now. I believe that the time is of the essence and that we have, the power still lies with the people. And we have given things to them in trust. But if they're no longer doing the right thing by it, even after warning after warning after warning, and we don't want to settle this with a civil war, but we want to settle this peacefully, the only way we can do this, I think, is actually to suspend the granted powers. You know, that's it, suspending them. So, that's my view. Have a think about it. But hey, again, check it out for yourself. Have a look at the Magna Carta, Article 61 for starters. But the Magna Carta, the for lack of better words, the spirit of the document is actually about justice for the people in the case when you have tyranny becoming the number one thing in the country. You know, so that's it. And the Bill of Rights is another one you need to have a look at. And both of these documents, both the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights, are in our law foundations active in Australia right now, today, even though they were created way before Australia was founded. They're still our law foundations today. They're still referenced in decisions made by the courts. So it's no stranger to a judge to have us mention something that's in that. But on principle, this is why I think the Magna Carta has been so famous. The principle there with the Magna Carta is that, God wants justice, true justice, not social justice, true justice, where you have to have a system where the wicked people are getting punished for what they're doing and the righteous people are getting honoured for what they're doing. That principle there is that you punish the evildoer and you reward the good doer. There has to be that system here in Australia. But if that is being inverted to where the good people are getting punished and the wicked ones are getting let off scot-free, like what's happening, then we have to have the powers, and we do have the powers to take the rug out from under them. So, and the problem here is lack of education, lack of ability to stand up for yourself. If you've ever been bullied at school and it's so affected your life, you're afraid of bullies for your lifetime. I mean, a lot of this stuff is some unlearning that we have to do from running from conflict. We can't be afraid of conflict, because if they're going to try and completely do away with our lives, as it seems like what they're going to do if they get this great reset going, if they are holding us to ransom, if they're holding our freedoms to ransom, we have to engage a completely different part of our brain, okay? Not the old one that we grew up with going to school. We have to realise as adults that we have bullies in our country. We have a domestic enemy. We have a whole lot of them potentially that are in collusion with one another. There may be some good ones in there. But, if they're not obeying our Constitution, they're not swearing the lawful oath in our Constitution, but if they're actively trying to create more legislation that upends the Constitution, standing up for our Constitution is probably one of the most noble things that we can do here in Australia today, and get some knowledge about what it says. But to go in and to bring the big stick of the Constitution and say, you show me in here where you're deriving your powers, otherwise you have none. That's it. Put them on the back foot, make them explain themselves. So we have to do this. I think this is the next thing for us. You can't just go and take out bearing arms yet. They have to be progressively, like Trump has done, progressively warning, and then, pushing further and further back. And if they keep abusing it, then after you've done all that you can do, like Trump has done, after you've done all that you can do, and you say, look, there's no more I can do to save this lot, we have to do something else about this situation. We have a real problem, and this is it, that we have to do it. But we have to do the honourable thing, the same thing a parent would with a child, is we say, look, no, you're disobeying the Constitution. No, is correction coming? No. Like you do with a child, warn them. But there comes a time when warnings are not heeded anymore. You've given them written warnings, you've given them oral warnings, you've given them time, you've given them all that you can give them. And then comes a time for actual correction. And we're not up to that point yet. It may be soon, but I believe this is where, as a Christian, you have to begin to pray for your nation, that God's hand of judgment would begin to certainly make people awaken them from their slumber. Get that stupor off their head, break their trust of the mainstream media, and ask God for strategies on how we can begin to step in to save our nation. And God's going to use us, the ones and twos. I mean, the Bible says that one shall put to flight 1,000 and two 10,000. So God's showing us a principle in his word that even if one person stood up, there's going to be a massive effect. But if two people stood up, there's going to be a multiplied greater effect, But what if 10 of us stood up, How many is that going to put fear in the heart of? If we all stood up together, the power would be seen that it is truly with the people, And the media have been hoodwinking people, beating people down, oppressing them with false information, oppressing them with the concept that the government is huge and that they are small. You know, that's the active role of mind control media, is to make the government into something that they're not, and make them seem that they are the sovereign supreme ones and we're only the ones under them, having to do what they say because they are the bosses. I mean, that's what the media has been doing. And, you know, is it a crime what they've been doing? I think it's certainly wrong, but I don't know of a crime enumerated in the Crimes Act for telling us false information or something that makes us feel small. So if they've gotten away with it on a technicality, you know, that they're not actually committing a crime by making us feel small as Australians, even though we hate what they're doing, even though what they're doing is morally wrong and factually untrue, then, you know, I think that's how the collusion's been working between the corruption in the government and the smokescreen of the media. You know, the media smokescreen is very important for them to keep doing what they're doing. But if they no longer have the media smokescreen, they have no longer that line of defence. So we have to firstly break the trust of the mainstream media's grip over people's minds, you know, and show them the truth, show them the law, show them our constitution, get right back to foundations, and check out if people are actually disobeying it. If they are, we need to give them warnings. But, you know, that's it. Give them, you know, somewhat the benefit of the doubt. The general people that you're probably going to deal with, most of those, you're going to have to give them the benefit of the doubt, but show them where it says it in the Constitution. But when you deal with the guy that's behind the front person, he's the one you need to actually really give it to him, you know. Give it to him straight, because he's the one who knows what he's doing, and he's operating behind his other minions out there that are none the wiser. So, God bless you, friends, and I just pray that God would bless Australia today. Can I pray? Lord, I pray for Australia, pray for everyone who's watching. I thank you for the power, Lord, of your word going out, and I thank you for shed gospel. I thank you, Lord, for the truth. I thank you for just breaking preconceptions off our minds and deception that's on our minds and things that we've come under